we're back. It is COMP397 in the summer 2016 semester at Centennial Web Game Programming, and it's week 10, part 2 of our broadcast. We just added some features, and again, if you look at where we're at, if I refresh, we start off and we have an island that kind of goes to starts random in random positions. We got a bit of a bug. We're not going to solve it right now for the island, but we're going to get back to it later. All right. It's usually on the right-hand side. Some kind of bug on the right-hand side that's bugging me, right? But I'll leave it alone for now. All right, let's continue with the stuff we have to take care of. If you look at the issues, so if I go to my, I've got 6 issues. Most of them are for the other version. I've done, so 1, 2, 3, these 3 issues are going to be left over. I've done my island. I'm testing in Azure. I think I need to do that more often. Let's see what it looks like on Azure. So if I refresh on Azure, and if I go to Start, right, then I should see this being uploaded to Azure as well. Make sure that it's refreshed. And if it's not working on Azure, right, I might have pushed to the, yeah, it's possible. That's okay, because let's take a look. And sometimes, right, you go into your, the repo itself, and we can also check to where it gets pushed, right? Like, if I'm not sure of what's happening, I can always go to, this is what happens sometimes. If I go to here, and I go to my commits, so if I go to here, I can see that all I have is my initial commit on my master, which is good. And if I go to 0.1, right, here's my 0.1, I can see that I added my island object here. So 0.1 is the one that I've connected to Azure. So here's my Azure. That's what's connected there. And I can always check to see what deployment I have. And you can see that it failed. Now, remember what I said. Sometimes when it fails for different reasons, right? And it tells you, if I click on the little red circle, it tells you fetching changes, an unknown error has occurred, check the diagnostic. Guys, 9 times out of 10. You know why it fails? No room. Azure, Microsoft Azure, and Microsoft in general has chopped down the amount of space we have as students and faculty a lot. Like, it used to be unlimited. You can make as many of them as you wanted, fill up Azure with as many web apps. Not so anymore, right? So I'm sure that if I was to redeploy, and I'll do that in a second, so if I want to redeploy this one, I could do that. But what I want to do is go back to here, and I can look at some other options, some other versions that I'm not using right now. For example, I've got lesson 8, which is one we kind of made together. I don't really have to have this anymore because it was just for testing to make sure that my with the stuff we did with setting up our boilerplate was working, and we know it works. So I'm going to just trounce this one. It's just testing online. A real one is GitHub, the mail pilot. I'm going to get rid of this little app. Remember, I also have the GitHub. I can always redeploy it on Azure because I have it on GitHub. I'm not killing my GitHub repo ever, right? That I won't have a problem with. Let's delete this one. Okay, now that I got a problem, and again, this is the way we check, right? I'm going to go back to COMP397 mail pilot, and if I look at the deployment under publishing, right here it is, deployment source, and I can see this got a problem, I can always click on redeploy. Redeploy will do the whole fetch thing again. Right now it says redeployment failed, redeploy deployment, message deployment temp not found, right? Deployment temp not found. All right, that's okay. I can always delete this deployment, right? I can delete this deployment. So I've deleted it. Just wait for a second. And if I refresh, see it's gone. Now it's watching, right? If I sync it up again, it's going to try and fetch the latest one. The sync request is there, and you'll start showing you this syncing stuff happening right away, right? By the way, the other way to do is disconnect and reconnect your repository. I'm just showing you different methodologies, and I know that's what's happening is my fetch is not working, right, because of the space. space, 100% space, right? How do I fix it? Let's go back. And again, you might think that, well, Tom, I don't understand. Worked before, now it's not working, but it's working locally. So if I refresh locally, start, no problem. But remotely, I get some issue, and it's an unknown error. And what is it? If you really test it, you'll see what the problem is. Let's go back to my thing, see if I can clear up some more space. I got some older versions of stuff. Let me take a look for 125. No, that's less than 8. I'm gonna kill that for a second. Bear with me, guys, while I just do some house cleaning, right? No choice, right? Less than 8. This one I can probably get rid of for less than 8. That's another class I'm doing. So, and I've got, this is the first one. I can probably get rid of this, no problem. So go here and delete. And I find that ASP.NET, C# takes up a lot more space than these little web apps we do, right? Let's go back to our little web app. And you might think, well, really? There's not much space? No, not for testing. For us now, there's a lot less space than there used to be for DreamSpark. I could change the service to pay-as-you-go, right? That's going to save me. That's okay. I can do that too. Let's go back to here, and we'll try and redeploy. See what it does. Redeploy failed. I love it. Let's get rid of it. And we'll check this out. I have to check it because what ends up happening is we forget about Azure, right? And then we go to do it and it doesn't work. And we don't know it never worked, right? And by the way, the other way to do it, the other way to fix it, what I'm going to show you now, if this doesn't work again, is disconnect it and reconnect it to the repository for continuous deployment. But like I said, I highly recommend you check it, right? And until you get a check mark, don't trust it because you're deploying live, right? So you don't know what's going to happen. There, see, that's bad again. All right, so what do? I can disconnect the whole thing. If I disconnect, I can just reconnect it to the GitHub repository and choose which version I want. Let's try it again. So I'm going to go back to deployment source. I can choose GitHub. This is the other way, the roundabout way to do it. Instead of personal, I'm going to choose Centennial. Project, I'm going to choose Mail Pilot Build. Instead of master branch, I'm going to choose 0.1, and then press OK. No performance tests. Now this is just a fresh redo, right? And it's unfortunate. You know what? I think in the past when they did this, Microsoft gave us lots and lots of room, and we're totally awesome with it, right? Now they've really cut back. And I think it's their whole strategy. You know how they cut back all the OneDrives from 15 gigabytes down to 5 gigs. It's part of that whole strategy of trying to do a little bit of cost containment, right? Unlimited. It used to be, yeah. And then it's cut down to 15 gigs, and then now it's down to 5 gigs, right? No, I don't think so. I know it sounds weird, but guys, oh, they're deployed. Okay, let's take a look. So that's good. So maybe you can only do one deployment at a time. Let's take a look. All right, so yeah, we're good. So now it works on Azure. Now it's important for you to try this out, guys, because like I said, especially when you're building your own game. See how I went out of bounds there? Yeah. Especially when you're building your own game, please make sure it works on Azure, that it deploys properly, and I just showed you how to fix it by deleting some of the other pieces. Worst case, like I said, you could go pay as you go, or you could deploy it on Heroku. I'm going to show you how to do that later on. Or it doesn't have to be in Azure. All right, that's bad. See, bad, Tom. Bad, Tom. We'll figure out the problem there in a second while it refreshes. Okay, let's go back to do it. So we've tested it, and we've got our play. We've got our island. Now we need, it might be a good place to put our player. I'm doing it in order because my clouds should probably come over my player, right? And my player should fly under my clouds, right? We don't want the player going on top of the clouds. This doesn't make any sense. Or I could, but I want them to go underneath the clouds. It's my design decision. You can design it differently, which means I want to make my player object. My player object is going to be a little bit different than your objects. It can't follow the same pattern, so therefore I cannot do what I'm doing here. Well, Not really. Let's try this out. Still, I'm going to need you know, some of the other things. Like for example, I need my reset. Can I reset my player? No. How about check bounds? Definitely. I'm going to check bounds my player all the time. I don't want to go outside of my bounds, right? Which means I'm probably going to need height and width properties. I'm going to probably get this stuff, height and width. So I need some of this, right? But not all of it. Again, this is in my mind defining my super duper abstract game object, what it's going to have and what it won't have, right? We got to decide on that later on. So let me add another object, new file. We're going to call this player. And by the way, you could call it plane as well if you want to put the plane object in. But it's not just the name of the object, but what it is. This is the player. This is what this guy is, right? Player.ts. Okay. My module, we're going to write this from scratch. My module is objects. Oops. And I'm going to export my class, which is going to be player with a capital P, player. And I'm going to, my player right now is going to extend the createjs.bitmap object, which means in my constructor, when I have a constructor, just to reiterate this piece, I need to make a call to my superclass. And of course, it's going to have an image string that I'm going to take in as an image. So image string, which is going to be a type string, which is going to go into my superclass you know, constructor. But it can't be like this. Remember how we did is we went core.asset.getResult, that kind of thing. And instead of me making a finger typing error, I'm just going to pull it from the constructor of this one. Actually, it's almost identical to this. You can see the identical pieces to it. And I'm also using lowercase I instead of the capital I for my player object. That's okay. There we go. Image string. And then I want to call my start method. That's true. So I'm going to call this dot start. That's exactly identical, which means I need a start. I don't have one yet. So we'll make a public start method that returns void. So I need that. I also need a public update method. Public, you can see the similarities. Public update also returns void, right? So those two public methods I need. And I'm going to need width and height because I need registration marks because my player is going to be in the middle. The pointer is going to be in the middle. So I need width and height. Again, I see the similarities that I can use in my abstract class when I build it, right? So in here, going back to my island for a second, I'm going to borrow some stuff that's already there. I get my private instance variables for these ones. You know what? I'll copy dy. I won't use it yet, but I'll copy this whole piece here, right? Because this is all the same. So I'm not going to copy all of it, but some of it, right? So I get rid of dy because I don't need that. Right? But this stuff I need, right? And the constructor is almost the same. Okay, cool. And what else? Let's take a look what else I can steal from island or ocean, right? By the way, island doesn't matter, island or ocean, notice that they're almost the same. But I got this piece, constructors, the start, methods, the reset. Am I going to reset my player? No, so that I don't need. How about my check bounce? Definitely, I get my check bounce method. So I'll kind of copy this part, even with the code. Go into my player object, and check bounce is a private method, no? So it's probably going to be over here in the private area. Oh, reset. I don't call reset for my private method. I got to stop this from happening. So what I want to do is I want to check the bounds. So here's what I really want here. So check bounds, to stop player from going outside. Okay, that's what it's going to be. Also in my start, I want to, in my player, I want to set, you know, the y value. Right, so I can't go up and down. I want to limit my player, so I can only go left and right. Okay, I can't move my mouse up and down. Up and down won't do anything. Only left and right. Right. Set the y value to be fixed, whatever that's going to be. All right. So I want to do that too in my start. Okay. And in my update, here's my pseudocode. I want my player to follow mouse. Right. That's what it's going to do. So wherever my mouse position is, player is going to follow. So that's what I'm kind of just in my mind, I'm crafting what I want to do first, right? Just to give you an idea of what, let me get the constructor. Sorry. I get the constructor comments in there because the constructor is the same, right? I'm still going to do all this is the same, right? Probably should copy all that. Just comments, right? So it's very similar. Once I start getting all these similarities, like I told you, it's like it tells me in my mind something's got to give. I gotta do something different because I'm copying, I'm duplicating, I'm not reusing. And object-oriented programming tells me I need to make an abstract class somehow. It's pulling at me, it's bothering me. Every time I look at it, it kills me, right? I'm not going to do it now. All right, so I got my check bounds, my start and update methods. Those start and update methods have to be there as well. So I'm going to go to my island for a second. Might as well get the comments from those two so we can save our time later on. So this I need comments between the two methods. And by the way, what you could also do is, just to make it easier for yourself, you can close some of these ones off. And you can make this so that the player it's a split screen. So here's my island. And you can make this the player. Sometimes that saves you some time, right? So you can compare one, right, side by side, so you can see what the differences are, right? So here's my island, right? And here's my player and island. And I missed this piece too. I probably can do this, right? Because that's something that I can probably do as well. I just change this to player. That's all it is. This is the player object. That's it'd be used in the game, right? Very similarities, like lots of similarities here. My constructor, right? Bounds. Okay. Did I do my check bounds yet? It's in a different position. So I don't have a reset. There's my reset. And then I have my public methods, and I have this one as my public. I might as well copy this start here as my public. So I probably could have done this. Again, I'm just constructing here, right? And I want to use the simple ways of doing things. So this is all this is correct. All this stuff here is not going to change all this. From island, I can copy this right into player. But I need to remember that my y value is fixed. I got to figure that out, right? And there's no dy, right? And this is my update. This is the same. Okay. I think we've taken everything I can from my island at this point. I'm going to close this off. So again, I've just got the comment style, the way it works for public properties. If I missed that one, probably could have put that in the other one too. Again, maintenance of this stuff is, pain in the ass, right? So I don't do too much of that. Okay, so let's think about the differences. So what I said was the y value has to be fixed, and I already have my x and y, my registration points. Now I know from testing what I want to do. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. So here's my little map in my mind, right? I want to open up my plane. So I'm going to open up my plane. Here's my plane object. There it is. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to go back into my ocean and paste it in there. There it is. So my object, what I want is to be somewhere down here, right? From an x perspective, right? So if you notice, this is the top, and if I go to the very top, this is 0, right? But if I go down to the bottom, it's got to be something around down here. Now, you may not see it, but actually, it's almost identical to be right here. The top left corner is my registration point here. And the great thing is that even from, when I use this Fireworks, it allows me to change my registration points for different objects. For now, though, I'm going to leave it the same. And right now, the registration point for this object is the top left corner, right? Like all the objects are. But that's what I want it to do. I want my plane to go basically right and left. But I don't want it to go up and down. If I make it go up and down, it's too easy. The game becomes too easy, right? So that's my limitation. My limitation is the plane can only go right and left. That's it. Okay? Let's figure this out. So first of all, there's a couple things we have to do back in the code, right? I know the value, and because I've tested this out. You can test it out and try it out, but the value is 430 pixels. So this dot y on start is equal to 430 pixels. If it's not right, we can always adjust, okay? But 430 is approximately right. It's not quite 460, right? And then, by the way, if it's no good, we can move it up a little bit or whatever. But my guess is around 430. Okay, so with height, registration, y, what about the x value? The x value is not going to be set here in start. The x value is going to be set in my update. And how do I get the x value? I'm going to say something like this. This dot x is equal to core dot stage dot mouse x. That's how we can do it. The mouse x value. So what I'm saying is every frame, my x value is going to be equal to wherever my mouse is on the stage. That's what this core stage mouse x does. The x coordinate of the stage, right, is going to, wherever my mouse is going to be set into the x coordinate of this object. So my plane is just going to go right, left, right? Here's the problem. I don't want it to, I want to check bounds. So I'm going to say this dot check bounds, because if I don't do check bounds, oops, cache canvas, this dot check bounds, sorry. I don't check bounds, right? When I move my x value, and I do it if I don't do this every frame, my plane will go off the screen, right? Because I can move my mouse anywhere on the screen or off the screen, right? That's bad, right? And if I make it off the screen, it's gone. I'll lose my plane for forever. I don't want that. So my check bounds method here is going to check to make sure that it stops off the screen. Now I know my width and my height because I calculated width and height in my start method, right? And this is happening as soon as I instantiate my object, right? So as I instantiate my object, I get my width and height right away, okay? And now what I really want to do is I want to say, well, if the x of my object is, is greater than or equal to the screen size, right? The size of the screen, which is 640. Oh man, that config, that thing is bugging me again. I go through this. See, it's big. It's a big thing, right? But I'm not going to let it bug me. I'm going to say if this is the first check, and we're going to say this: check the right side. So check right bounds, right? That's the first thing we're going to check. If this dot x is greater than or equal to 640, right? Minus this dot width times 0.5, right? Minus this dot width times 0.5. If it's greater than this, right? And again, I'm going to separate this so you can see it. So if this is greater than this, if this condition is true, that's what I'm saying, then what do I want to do? I want to say that this dot x is equal to 640 minus this dot width, dot 0.5. Why? 640 minus half my width. It means my right side is going to hug 640. That's what it's going to be forever. So I'm never going to allow myself go beyond that point. All right? Same thing on the left bounds. This is the right bounds. Left bounds is a little easier. Right? I'm going to say check left bounds. And so I'm going to say if this dot x is less than or equal to 0 plus half the width plus width at 0.5. It's almost like I need half the width. Calculate. I'm just saying, man. I'm just saying. Instead of me putting this time width, I'm making that calculation over and over again, right? And when I make a calculation over and over again, that's extra stuff that I'm doing every frame, right? I don't want to calculate every frame. I want to do it once when I'm upon start. I calculate half width. I calculate the width. I calculate a bunch of different things, and I have those as properties, right? Or private instance variables. In this particular case, I'm never going to share half the width. Maybe I will, right? But at least if I have them there, I can always check and do that later. I don't want to make that calculation over and over again. Yeah.
Just so much. This is checking that the plane doesn't go off the seam.
Yeah, because what's happening is 0 plus. What's happening is if the plane, here's the plane, right? I can do this, right? If this is my mouse, I've got approximately in the middle of the plane, I can do one of these, right? That's not good, right? That means I can cheat. I can go outside the cloud and I can woohoo, and I'll never get hit, right? And then I can go here and just do this, right? That's no good. And the same thing over here. I don't want to go beyond this. I don't want to go beyond this, actually. I want the plane to stop here, and I want the plane to stop here. So it can't go this way or even half, ever, right? And that's why I'm checking left bounds and right bounds. All right, so if that's true, then again, this dot x is equal to 0 plus half the width. And we're going to check these later on, if this makes sense. Okay, so I've checked right bounds, check left bounds. I'm going to check this thing every frame. Woo! Calculating, 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 calculating over and over again. Minimum viable product, minimum viable product. But let's issue a bug. Can one of you guys issue a bug that's proper on my thing? Go to the mail pilot and issue a bug to explain what the problem I have, right? Or could it be an enhancement instead of a bug? It's not really a bug, right? It's an enhancement that I'm gonna add into my 0.2, so I do less calculations whenever I check bounds. So I want to have almost like a fixed half width and half height, and I calculate it one time, right? Because imagine I'm calculating 60 times per second, half width and half height. Keep doing it over and over again. It's going to slow down my game, right? It's going to make it less efficient. I don't want that. It doesn't make any sense, right? Any extra calculations over and over like this again, it's wrong. Okay, let's test her out. And now there's a couple things. I've got my plane. This is it for my plane. There's nothing else that it can do. Just move it left and right now. Okay, I got my plane moving left and right, and this is fantastic. But we have a bit of a problem, right? Well, not a bigger problem. We've only done one part of it. One is we've put our player into play. I got to do the other piece parts. So I'm going to go into my index.html, and let's put my player in here. So I'll copy this. I think that's Kevin's issue. Right? And say player. There's objects player, right? That's where this is going to go. And then, of course, I got to do the same thing under core reference TS. So under island, I'm going to put player. .ts, I got that piece. And now there's another problem. In my game.ts, I didn't put my on there too, right? No asset, no image, right? Got to put that in, which is going to be player.ping. And that's going to be, or is it plain.ping? Plain. And this is where we digress a little bit from the standard things we've been doing so far. And there's a reason for this. So here's my plain.ping. Looks like, right? You can check it here. But this is correct. So plain. And then when I populate it, so this is the one thing, I've added it in, and now I got to go into my class, my scene. Here's my play scene, ocean player, private. Player objects player, right? And when we do that inside here, we're going to do this dot underscore player is equal to a new objects player, and we're going to pass in plane because that's what it looks. The player is a plane, right? This dot add child. That's why it's a little different. This dot underscore player, and what we also want to do is down here we want to update the player. This dot underscore player dot update. All the same stuff, right? Okay, so let's test it out and see if it works. And again, because I've saved and transpiled automatically, blah, 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 it should be already fired up, right? So I'm going to go to, not here, but I'm going to go to Mail Pilot and click Start. And yay, see, got my player working. Can't go outside the bounds. See, I can try, I can't do it. And I go over here, can't do that either. So it won't allow me to go outside the bounds. Has to stay in. And that's the player. Now there's another problem. If I move here or here really fast, it zooms really fast, right? That's a problem, right? I mean, it's almost like I can go, right? Planes don't move that fast, right? They bank, right? They go slow to the left and slow to the right. So what I could do is I could say something like this. I could multiply it, give it a multiplier, where it kind of gets to there eventually, right? But that's an enhancement. That's not part of my. I'm sorry. I know. I'm saying this, but And I'm saying it over and over again because in my mind, by the way, I want to do that. So maybe someone can add an enhancement, another enhancement for version 0.2, where my player, when I move it to the left or move it to the right, there's a delay, right? And what I can do is I can program the delay in my in my update function. So I multiply it like by 0.9. So I kind of whenever my x coordinate is, I multiply it by 0.9, and eventually after every frame, it'll slowly get there. It'll slowly get there to 0.9. So eventually it's going to be so close that it's going to be like right on top of the mouse, right? We'll figure this out in a second. Okay, so that's this thing here. I think we're done. My player, I think we're pretty effective at getting it done. Let's check to see what we've got done. So if you look at the thing here, if I go to my issues, and I'm thinking I'm probably going to have a couple more issues here. That someone's being nice to me. Yay! Add property for half width and half height to player.ts, and this one is calculate half height and half width and start, reduce overhead enhancement. One is by Kevin, another one's by Aaron, looks like, right? So which one should I take? Half height and half width, and this one's very specific up here. I kind of like that. They also called it an enhancement. I mean, I want to kind of close one off. I'm going to close Aaron's off. Sorry, Aaron. I'll close it off as a duplicate. So I'll change the label. I'll make it a duplicate, right? And you know, there's no milestone attached to it, but I'll kind of say thanks, Aaron. Duplicate, right? And close and comment. That's gone. And then I can go back to my issues, and I can see that there is a calculate left and height. And what I can do is, you know, this is the thing that I have in here. I could mark it as an enhancement, right? And I could mark it against a milestone. So 0.2, there it is. And what I can go in here is I can't modify this unless I click edit, and then I can edit his issue. I can go in there and take out this piece, right? Because it already is an enhancement. Save. There's the issue, right? And I can just click. That's it. So I go back to issues. Thanks, Tim. There I go. All right, so that's for version 2. You can see the version where all the versions are. These are all for version 2. And there's only a couple left for version 1, but my player's avatar, my plane, I need to add it. And I've added it in. It was a very simple way of doing it. I'm going to close this one off, close this issue. Right? Did I actually did it do a commit? Okay, I made a mistake. I closed the issue. So I can go back and I can reopen it. Go back to close this one, kind of a contra to what we can do. Here's my closed issue, and I can see that the plane's avatar has been closed, right, as an example. I can reopen the issue, right, worst case scenario, if I want to. And I didn't close it off with comments or what I did or whatever. It's not closed. So let me do the other way. So I'm going to go here, and I got my 13 changes. I'm going to add this to the staging area. I'm going to say this closes issue number 2. And I'll just push it right from here. Yay. And if I go here and I refresh this issue, you can see that this says this closes issue number 2. And am I still open for plane number 2? You can see that it's open. And I can close it off as I got this comment right here, close issue. Yay. All right, so if I go back to issues, I can see that I got a bunch open still, but they're not for this version. I only have 2 left. I'm doing this all the time, right? Let's check now for Azure before I go to my next thing. So I always want to check to see if Azure is working or if it took the commit. We'll refresh that one. And no player, same issue with Azure. Azure seems to not like, so far today, is not like me doing a continuous deployment with this one. See, failed again. So I'm going to kind of disconnect this one. And I know that's what fixed it last time. Hopefully we'll fix it this time, right? And then I'm just going to connect it again. Well, wait till it's done. There we are. It's going to go down. And I want to make sure it works on Azure. That's why I'm doing this all the time. Is it a pain in the ass, guys and girls? Absolutely, right? Shouldn't be this hard. You know, it shouldn't be this hard at all. It should be very easy. That's why we do continuous deployments. We can upload an update from Azure. But I got lots of stuff going on here. So mail pilots. I want to go with my 0.1 and click OK. And I'll wait till this is deployed. Let's see if it actually deployed it. And we can see if it's working. We want to see that check mark or working. If it check marks, then we're good to go. If it doesn't check mark, it gives me a red sign. That's bad. And if it gives you a blue screen of death, it says thank you very much for deploying, like how it normally does, right? Yeah, that's good. That's bad too. Nice and refresh. Start, and now we have the plane. So everything works on Azure. I'm very happy with that. Took a little bit of extra steps to make it go, which I don't like. That's a thing that's a new change from Microsoft that I don't enjoy. I'm going to give them some feedback on that one. Okay, let's continue. We have to finish off this build, and we only have a few minutes left, right? How do I do this now? So we did my player. That was kind of a little bit more different, like a little different. My island, my ocean, and my cloud, though, very similar. So I'm going to take my island as a template this time around. So I'm going to go Objects. I'm going to go New File. We're going to call this cloud.ts, right? Here's my new file. I'm going to take island as a basis. Here's my island. So copy it all, and go to my cloud, and then click paste. And we'll change the names to protect the innocent. We'll say cloud. There we go. And I know I'm going to need a dx value too, a dy value and a dx, because I want to have a little bit of drift in my cloud. Kind of drifts to the right and kind of drifts to the left. And I also want it so that my cloud, I have one cloud right now that I want to make, right, in this version, just one. In the next iteration, I want to be able to make an array of clouds. That's version 2. Right now, all I want to make is one cloud that comes randomly, just like my island. But it has a little bit of drift to the left, and a little bit to the right. You know, so that way it kind of changes. So this one here has to be private dx, a dx value. That value is going to be random, right? Okay, so dy and dx. Here's my width. Same width and height I need for the cloud. Image string is all the same. Do I have any other place where it says island? Island, cloud. Sorry, I got to update. Otherwise, my documentation will be off. And that's not good. Private methods, this is all the same. It goes this height off the screen. That's correct. The cloud would go this much height off the screen. That makes sense. And then the same thing with my check bounds. If this is wrong, I'm inheriting my problem from my island. I didn't fix it, right? So when I check the bounds, and if it's greater than 480 plus this dot height, that's the issue. That's the bug. And it's not height, it's width. So I know what the answer is for a thing. I'm not going to close it off now. I refuse, right? Because I know this is the issue. But it's this width. I just chose height instead of width. That was the bug that caused my island to be off. But now I fixed it for my cloud. So this is the same 480 plus the half the width, right? If it goes half the width out, then I want to move it back. So that's for the bottom. So if I go out, well, actually that's wrong. Hold on a second. I'm right, but this height is right. I'm talking about when I check bounds for the right and left, which is when I reset. This one. Oh, so it is width. Width. 640 minus half the width because the registration point's in the middle. And then I add the width afterwards, and I got to see if that's correct. That may not. Then I kind of lose that. Leave it alone. We'll figure out. That's the refactor we have to do. Bug. We're going to leave that bug in there for whatchamacallit for the cloud too. It's okay. Now, one thing I know I need to do because I'm just running out of time. In my reset, the y value is set to minus height for my reset. The x value is set to a random location across. That's going to stay the same. But now in my reset, I have something else I need to do. I normally would do this in my start. My start method, if you look at my start method, this describes dy as 5, right? But I want in my cloud, I want my dy value to be random. I want it to go from 5 to as fast as 10, right? So sometimes I have fast clouds going up and down. Sometimes I have slow clouds, right? So as slow as 5, not slower than the I don't want it to be any slower than the island, because that makes no sense. Island's got to move the slow. This is going to be the slowest object, right? 5 and 10. So this has got to come out here. My reset's going to change my properties of my cloud every time. So X out of this. And so it's in a reset. So my reset is going to say, it's going to describe my my dy value. And my dy value is going to be a random number, right? So I'm going to say, we're going to make sure it's math.floor, math.random, right? And it's going to be between 5 and 10, right? Times 5, right? And then I'm going to add 5 to it, right? Plus 5, because minimum is 5. Mod 5 means that I'm going to get a number divisible by 5, right? So and it's going to be 0, and that's going to be 0, right?
And then plus 5, we get
It's the same. 0 to 5 is, take my number between 0 and 1, multiply by 5, between 0 and 5,
Yep.
right? And then I add 5 to it because it means the minimum is 5 plus 5. So it's going to be between 5 and 10. Okay, same thing. You can do it different ways, right? So if I do this, math.floor, I'm going to say this is this first piece, math.random, and this piece is the second piece, right? So math.floor of all this, right? And that's my dy. Now I'll do the same thing for dx. This dot underscore dx, right, is equal to math.floor. And now this is a bit more tricky, right? Math.random, right? And then we're going to say, now here's something. I want to start the drift. I want it to go from the left to the right. And you know what? Dx is a little funny because to go to the left, I have to go negative, a negative value. I got to march negative, right? And if I go to the right, it's got to march positive. So how do I do that? Well, that's easy. -4, right? So 0 to -4, I can do it that way, but that would be a negative number, right? Or 0 to 4, right? 0 to 2, and then -2, I don't know, or -4, something like that. It's got to be something where I can adjust from -2 to +2. How do I do a number between -2 and +2? Right? Multiply by 4 minus. But then if I did that, that'd go from 0 to 4, right? And then I move it to the left by 2, so it'll be 0 to 2, but it could be, if it's closer to 0, it'll be closer to -2. And if it's closer to 1, it'll be closer to +2. Make sense? So it'll be like this. It'll say, it's correct. So it'll say times 4, and then -2. Right? So that means that it starts at -2, right? Multiplied by 4, or you can see it as 0 to 4, and then -2. Either way, it's the same. So it's going to be a drift. That's the drift. Whew. So dy and dx is going to be, this is the drift. So this is horizontal drift. Right? And this is vertical speed. Up and down, right? So the speed is going to be between 5 and 10 now. Fast clouds, right? This is normal. Nothing's going to change here. The position is not going to change here. Random to location. Let's just pair them together. So this is what's going to happen when it resets. Okay. And then the other thing is that when I check bounce, this is going to be identical. I'm not going to change this. But on the update, this dot y plus equals to this dot dy, and this dot x plus equals to this dot underscore dx in my update. Why? Because I want to have horizontal drift every frame as well. But it's going to be the same. So if it starts going to the right, it's going to keep going to the right. And if it starts going to the left, it's going to keep going to the left. And every time it resets, it's going to change my horizontal drifts. So my cloud is going to appear like a new cloud. That's what it's going to look like. But actually, it's just the same cloud that I'm recycling, right? I don't want to make new clouds. This is a good thing for enemies. This is a good way to make enemies because I have a fixed number of enemies. Instead of instantiating a new enemy, I only instantiate 1 or 3 or 5. And then I'm just resetting off screen, right? So I never have more. I've already preloaded all my enemies and the same number of enemies for this level, right? And all I'm doing is I'm just moving them around, right? So that it looks like there's more, that they come forever, right? But it's not true. I'm just resetting. Even if I collide with the enemy, I reset it, right? If I want to. If it wasn't a cloud. Now here's the thing, and this is where I told you not to make a car game. If I make multiple clouds, they can overlap because it's going to be some cloud is going to go like this, the other cloud's going to go the other way, one cloud's going to go straight down. They can overlap. Cars, spaceships, those kind of things, you got to watch it. Or else it will look weird, right? Let's check this. Let's try this out to see if it works. So the first part is done. We've made our cloud, right? Let's add them into the other pieces. So we're going to make it inside of our index.html. Here it is. So we're going to add it into here. So underneath the player, we're going to add that in. I see how it's growing, right? Later on in this course, we're going to talk about other ways of packaging this stuff up and minifying so it's not so crazy. Because right now we're just testing. So player. So then, cloud, that'll be okay. Player. And then I want to go into our core in my reference. And then I want to do the same thing. I want to add in a reference to this, where I go cloud. And then I want to go into my game itself, and we need another object, another asset for the cloud. Because we don't have an asset, so we know it's under again images, assets, images. We called it cloud ping, right? It looks like this. Just saying, right? It's like retro, right? Come on, give me a break, guys. It's not really awesome, but you know, cloud. By the way, these are not my assets. This is from the original game, right? 1964, I think it was called, or something like that. All right. Okay, and this of course can't be plain. It's got to be called cloud. There it is. I've done this, and now to test it, I've got to put it into my scene. So I'm going to go to scenes and my play scene, and I instantiated an object. I'm going to do one right now. We can play with this later on. Cloud, which is of type objects.cloud. There we go. And it's in order, right? So this is the ocean object. And this is the island object. This is the player object. Of course, we need the cloud object for now, one cloud object, which is this dot underscore cloud is equal to new objects dot cloud. We're going to send in cloud as the name of the object. This dot add child, this dot underscore cloud. Now this is nice for one cloud, but this will fail us if we do like 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 clouds. It means I have to add one after another. It doesn't make any sense. I want to make an array of clouds, right, in the future. So that's something we have to add in. Okay, so a cloud, we've added it in here, and we need, of course, to do this dot underscore cloud dot update. Take care, thank you. But remember that if I have more than one cloud, I need to do a loop to update each cloud in the array. Same, right? When we have this in the future. Okay, cool. We have everything. Let's test it locally. Bam. So we know this is connected. So start, and there's the cloud, and it goes to the right. Let's make sure it does, and it goes to the left, and it's a faster cloud, and it's a slower cloud. So everything that works fine. Oh, that was pretty fast, right? So you can see that it's already challenging, right? So even if I have one cloud, I can avoid it. If I'm going over the things, you can see it kind of came at me from another angle, right? And you can see that it's kind of going from one side to the other. There we go. Now imagine if I had 3 of these, right? Now the game is more challenging. Now the game is, I have to really avoid the clouds in order for me to land on my island to get the mail, right? Which is why it's called Mail Pilot, right? Okay, guys, we've kind of mission accomplished on this one, right? Let's refresh, and let's go back to look and see what stuff we have to do. So we kind of got this done. We should probably test it on Azure to make sure that it works, right? And of course, we know it's going to fail because of the problems we've been having on Azure today. Well, that's okay. We've been working around it. One of the things I'm going to do is I got to see which issue this closes, because if I go to here, I see that the last one is add clouds. I've kind of named it wrong. We'll say cloud. Sorry, no, I'm going to have to modify this for a second. Add cloud. Enemy. Player to avoid. Sorry. Probably should say cloud. Right? And this is closed by the issue, so we're going to upload this thing. And this is, of course, issue number 4. So I'm going to close it off. So we're going to kind of go and refresh. And I'm going to go here to there, and I'm going to say added cloud to game, cloud object to game. And then we'll say this closes issue number 4, right? And then we'll check mark and push, which will push everything on there. Now, I got to show you this last piece for those people who are sticking around. I want to merge. I want to merge my 0.1. I want to merge it into the master, right? This is the part I did last time, right? But first, let me close off my milestone and everything else. So let's go back up to the master. So go up to here, and if I refresh, you can see that there's close issue number 4. I can close this issue, right? And you can see that my milestone is almost complete. How come it's not complete? Because we have tested on Azure. So go to Azure, see that it failed, disconnect, right? Sorry, this is all part of it, right? All part of testing. We have tests on Azure every single time. We're testing on Azure every time I put it up there, right? And I'm going to say close, issue close. I test it on Azure every time, right? And let's go back in here, deployment source, go here, go GitHub. That's bizarre that it's doing that these days, it's just me probably. Maybe it doesn't work. Maybe it doesn't do that for you. For me, it's doing it nice. 0.1 and OK. Okay. And it's going to go deploy. Hopefully, the deployment source is going to work. And what happened? Your unsafe data will be discarded. No. Let us refresh. That's what we're going to do. We're going to refresh. We don't want no unsafe data to be discarded. It's because I refreshed too fast. Did I not do it? What happened? Did you see that? It totally didn't take it at all. Yeah, okay. There, done. Okay, good. Change it. Check it. It's good. No cloud. Sorry, gotta make sure it's correct. Cloud, no cloud. That's bad. Why? It's important. This is the stuff we do, guys. You know, if you don't look, I added a cloud object, but I got no cloud. Why? Huh? Like, yours works? Yours doesn't work either? Huh? No, it can't be Microsoft. It can't be. It's me. There must be a reason why it's happening, right? So we're going to check to see what there must be a reason. Seriously, there must be a reason why it's happening. So we have to check it. And but I'm going to wait till this refreshes, because it's refreshing nice and slow today for some reason or another. I love it. It's doing this kind of stuff to me. It challenges. You know what challenges you when things aren't working this way? Okay, instead of talking like this, I'm going to declare that this one is closed. We know that it works. Some other issue. Right, now we can make it, if it doesn't open, we can reopen it as a bug, right, in version 2. So we're going to say we tested this out, closed. Okay, so now our milestone is complete. What I want to do is I want to merge from one to the other, but I also want to make a release, my initial release, right? So we're going to talk about how to make a release as well, really quickly. So I'm going to go to issues, and I got to go to milestones, and you can see that my milestone 1 is 100% complete. Right? So I'm going to close the milestone. So 0.1 is done. And now I want to merge. Let's do that. So now I do that locally first. So notice that I uploaded to Git. Now if I go to clear, and if I go Git status, oh, it didn't push. That's why Microsoft didn't update. How'd that work, right? It's almost like it reverted, right? So I'll say git add dot git commit -m. I'll say added cloud object to game, right? We'll say this closes issue number 4. Git push origin went to 0.1. We're good to go. It'll fail on Microsoft again. Fail. You know it's going to fail now. But that's okay. Now I want to merge the branch, right? All I've been doing is modifying 0.1. I haven't touched the branch, so I have no problem merging, right? So I'm going to say git branch, and then master, or sorry, checkout. Git checkout master. You see that it went from 0.1 to master, and then git merge 0.1. There it is. And if I go git status, you can see that on branch master, I've got my branch is ahead of origin master by 6 commits, right? So now I've got to do a git push origin master, right? That pushed everything. Now git status, right? Everything's up to date and clean. And now, what do I want to do? I want to make sure I check on process. So here's my GitHub. So I check this, and I can see that my master has all the commits, 7 commits, they're there. And here's my branch, right? And I'm going to leave it alone. I'm not going to touch it. I'm not going to kill it. I'm not going to destroy it. I'm going to leave it alone. Why? I can always go back. Now I'm going to make a new branch, 0.2. Right? Let's do it locally. And then we'll do the release. So I'll say git, first I'll clear. Now we need to do 2 things. When we want to make a new branch, we have to make sure that our master branch, or the branch you're branching from, whatever it is clear. So always do a git status. If it doesn't say directory clean, problem. Because when you kind of merge back in again, there's going to be a difference, and it won't be a smooth merge. Okay, let's try this again. I'll say git branch, and we'll call it 0.2. I'm not at 0.2. If I go git branch by itself, I can see that there's 3 branches, 0.1, 0.2, and master. I'm going to say git checkout branch 0.2. Right? And now you can see that I'm at 0.2. Okay, now I'm going to, if I go git push, right? Git push. Or if I want to publish my branch, right? If I go git push origin to 0.2, right? It's going to go through and it's going to push. It says HTTP blah, 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 0.2 to 0.2. Now, if I go back to here and refresh, it should say I have 3 branches, right? 0.1, 0.2, and master. 0.2 we leave alone. That's for version 2.2. 0.1 we have for what we did already. And now we have a chance to do a new release. If I click on releases, I want to go and create a new release. We're going to say we're at 0.1. That's the release that we're going to, right? And we can say release title, right? And we can also click it as a pre-release, because what it is. It's not really finished, right? And then I can publish the release. There it is, 0.1. So I have 1 release, and you can download the source code for that release, which is really cool. So if I want to just download this release, I can take the link for the source code and I can put it in the markdown, right, of my README file. So say get the latest release, blah, 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 this is the latest release. And I can add additional tags and blah, 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 and whatever. I'm not going to do that right now. but I've got it. So now if you notice, if I go back to my repo, I have 3 branches and 1 release, 7 commits. Now that was a long way of doing it, process-wise, but here's the great thing, and we're done. We kind of finished a little bit. We're still 10 minutes away. I should have finished 10 minutes ago. But I want to wrap up to say this. We've gone full circle right here, all right? And this is not working. First of all, this is definitely not good, right? My deployment source from Microsoft, definitely disconnecting this now. I'm going to 0.2, right? That's where it should be, 0.2. And I'll fix this later on. I know there's a problem on my side because I've got lots of other things going on in the background, things you can't see, either resources that I haven't pinned to my desktop that I'm going to go get rid of later, right? But in my deployment source, remember that whenever we do things with Microsoft, right, that even with GitHub, I'm going to choose Centennial for a second. Even with GitHub, one thing to note is, and I'll show you one more thing before we go, right, that when I choose my project, here's my project, I can always choose a different branch. I don't have to choose branch master. I can choose branch 0.2 in this particular case because that's the new one. Okay, that's the new branch that I just made. It's identical to master in every way, right? But I leave master behind. This is what I want you guys to think about. I want you to take this away. Leave master behind. We don't touch it. Imagine if this, I'm working with Aaron. Aaron is, or I'm working with Omid or whoever. I'm working with you, right? What's your name again? Tony. Awesome, Tony. I'm working with Tony, and I'm working with Aaron, and I'm working with Omid, and every one of them has different things they're going to do. And maybe Kevin's going to give us his nice issues because Kevin's going to look at the issues or whatever. Abel, he's going to do some testing or whatever. I'm working with all the guys in the room, right? As an example that I got here, right? Maybe Daniel's actually going to help us concentrate on this stuff too instead of doing Pokemon Go. I don't know, right? He's putting it out there, right? I'm joking, Dan. I'm joking. I'm joking. I swear. Well, whatever. We're all working together, let's say, right? And then as we work together, everyone has a contribution to make. But Tony and Aaron are the ones I'm working with. So Aaron goes and makes his own branch. He calls it Aaron. Seriously. Or 0.3. It doesn't matter what he calls it. Or maybe it's the name of the feature that he's adding, right? Which might be better, right? Like, for example, maybe Aaron's going to work on bugs, a bug fix, right? So he's the bug fix guy. He's going to go through and every time we have a feature that says bug, Aaron's going to go through and fix it. That's dangerous. Does he want to fix it on my master branch? Maybe not. Maybe he wants to fix it off of a branch of a branch. Like he's going to do off my 0.2, he's going to make another branch that's bug fix, right? Then he's going to merge it back into he's going to make a pull request, right? And then I'm going to accept his pull request. I'm going to merge his changes back into my 0.2 branch before I merge it back into the master. There's lots of stuff you can do here. Or if you really wanted to be nice and efficient with your partner, because for MailPilot, remember I allow you to work with one other person for MailPilot, right? For your side scroller, you can work with one other person, right? For your thing. Let's say, for example, one person is working on documentation, or one person is working on a feature that of a project, and the other person is working on another feature. You can work 2 separate branches, and they don't affect each other. Merge one, merge the other, and then they're part of the master branch, right? This is really, really evident when you're using something like a model view controller kind of idea, right? Right now we're just making games, but tomorrow you might be working with Node, and one person's going to be working on the model, another person's going to be working on all the views, and the third person is working on all the controllers, and they don't affect each other whatsoever, right? Different, development timelines, or different feature sets that don't collide. All right. One thing to note, let me just check Azure to see if it actually deployed. Give me a check mark. Give me a check mark. Yeah, okay, check mark. See if it actually worked. I know I have to. I'm guessing that Azure is going to work. And Azure used to be the most. There you go. Azure used to be the most reliable, easy way of doing stuff. And now with this limitation, it kind of puts a damper on things. One thing to note for Azure is you see this little tool thing. Take a look. This is a new thing. Tools. If I click on Tools, what it allows me to do is I can also do something like, if I scroll down, I have other options here, right? Performance tests, this. I can also look at App Service Editor. App Service Editor. App Service Editor actually pulls up an in-browser editing experience, and I want you to open it up. Here it is. This is right in Azure, right? If I click Go, right? Now, be careful. If I have an active deployment source like GitHub, and I'm opening up an editor here like this, right? What I'm actually doing is I'm physically editing the files online, right? So typically we don't recommend doing both. One active deployment, like an integration, as well as this editor. But one thing you notice when this thing pipes up is, I want you to tell me what it looks like. Okay, you tell me when it comes up eventually, when Azure decides to cooperate, and instead of keeping you guys, and this is kind of like the drum roll. The drum roll's still going, right? And by the way, why is it taking long? It's taking long because this is cool. It's taking long because look what I got here, and look what this looks like. Yeah, man. This is actually where Visual Studio Code came from. Originally, Visual Studio Code was made to work in an editor, and actually in Edge, if you're going to do any kind of debugging, all the debugging window and all that stuff is actually Visual Studio Code in things. So Edge is really adding some really cool features. They're actually going to go to a full-blown, editor in the window, right? As opposed to how we're doing it right now. We're using Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code is using Electron to create an app, and that's what we're doing it with that, right? Using GitHub's Electron. But here, if you notice, right, I could physically go and look at the objects. Like, look here, if I click on scripts, I could see online all my scripts. These are all my scripts, and they're both GitHub and everything else. Not only that, but I have access to an online console. So this has got a little minor console, so I can do an LS, right, which looks like a directory structure of a Windows machine, all online, right? Why is this cool? Troubleshooting, my friends, troubleshooting. If something goes wrong or whatever, or if you can't connect to GitHub, or if you even want to do anything on GitHub, or let's say you're developing a website from scratch, and you don't have a computer at all. You just have literally you just have a terminal. You have a Chromebook, right? You could physically do everything on here. This supports, because it's Visual Studio Code, it supports TypeScript, it supports NPM, it supports Bower, it supports everything that you have online, and it's built into Microsoft. It's a little sketchy. I'll be honest with you. There's some stuff that's a little bit different, and it's not the same version of Visual Studio Code that we have right now. One day, though, I really believe that the browsing experience is going to be quick enough, just like Cloud9, which is a competitor right now. Cloud9, you can do the same thing. You can kind of do everything online. It's the same. And the great thing about this is not only that, but you can actually run it. If you look at this, the run, I can run this thing in a window right from here, right? I can actually program in here and do all my changes right in here in my Visual Studio Azure window. Okay, so I'm going to show you where I got that. I'm just going to close that down so we don't cause any damage, right? It's under Tools, App Service Editor. The other thing you can do is if you ever want to check to see what's going on, you can always go to Console. Console pops up a little console, right? Here's Azure, and I can just do, again, an LS, right? Which will show me all the stuff physically up on Azure. And I see it in a different way, but it's the actual root of the website, just like I've direct access to the web root. This is really cool tools that they've added in lately, right? Okay. I'm not going to do anything different here. In fact, I'm going to get out of here because I don't want to mess with it. And just to test to see if I messed it up, I'm going to go here and check it out and see we're good. Yeah, right? Here's one thing you don't want to do, and I'm cautioning you, if you ever do work on the editor online, and you have somehow there's a thing that you have inside of you to try and work online because you want to prove to me that you can do it fully online and not work with any kind of thing. Don't ever install a package.json file in the root of your folder, all right? Once you do that, Azure will think you're building a Node app and will install a web.config file that'll look for a server.js or an index.js or something, app.js, to start off your Node app. And your file will never work properly again, right? There's some stuff going on in the background that you got to look at. There's some configuration detail, but it actually changes your web app service altogether. So please don't do that. Don't add a package.json unless you're going to run a Node server for your app. Okay? Questions before we end for the day? I think we've done quite a few things. Again, I'm just continuing with this paradigm of working with GitHub as a way of using issue tracking and project management, thinking about it as some kind of sprint that we 2 sprints, one last week and one this week, as we continue with our agile methodology. All right, guys. thank you so much. Remember that next week we'll continue the build. Your assignment 4 is due on the 25th. That's next Friday, but subject to change because we have to kind of, I got to see how you guys are at. You guys should have already started your assignment, all right? And how? Take my mail pilot. That's what I recommend, right? My structure. Obviously, you're not going to have clouds, all right? Or a plane, chances are, or islands or ocean in your build, right? You won't have those things. I'm just saying, right? But you can certainly take the I just did and make your own. You can start now. You have enough to get going, right? You can't do collisions yet. We haven't talked about collisions. Next week, I want to do that. And when we start doing issue tracking next week, when we first come in, I want to do things like collisions, because without collisions, we can't do points, we can't do lives, we can't do anything. And we need to fix that bug, that annoying bug that just drives me crazy, right? And other things that we're going to fix next week to get it going. I need sounds by next week. We almost should have a full game by the end of the day, all right? Guys, thank you so much, and I'll see you next week.